suppose the thing is, you know, I stumbled upon the next quote, which I thought kind of summed it up quite nicely as well. Our youth now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for their elders. They love to chat in places of exercise. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents. They chatter before company. They gobble up their food, and they tyrannize their parents. And you might wonder which trend report it is that I've pulled this particular quote from on the youth. And you might be surprised, as I was, to see that this is actually a quote from Socrates from 400 before Christ, which is a pretty long time ago. And so it got me thinking that has so much really changed when it comes to marketing to youth and when it comes to talking to youth. Because when I look at that slide, I could well imagine changing one or two bits of language there that it could come straight out of a trend report from 2014 around youth and behavior. And so my hypothesis is kind of that, you know, there's a lot about the youth that has not changed over the years. Yes, we've got iPods and we've got social media, but in many ways, if you look at that, some of the behaviors are absolutely still there. So why is it that in 2014, we are so obsessed with the youth? And why is it that we are so interested in how we should market to them? And my point of view is that going way, way back, what you will find is that the youth typically as an audience tends to be the sharp end of where consumers interact with brands. You can almost call them the trendsetters in terms of how they engage with brands. And what's interesting to notice is that the brands that are doing well in terms of how they engage with the youth, how they speak to that audience, the brands that have kind of crept into the hearts and minds of the youth are the brands that also actually tend to do quite well with other audiences outside of the youth. And you're just going to pull up a report of the top 100 youth brands as voted in the UK in 2013. And there are a whole host of brands there that have got a footprint and an audience that extends very, very far beyond just the youth as an audience. So my viewpoint is that we've got to look at the youth in terms of what it is that they're looking for and how we market to them, because it will give us a good indicator in terms of how we should speak to audiences in general. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today are a couple of things that we've picked up looking at brands that are doing well in the space of youth marketing. But what you'll find interesting is that the principles that they apply in terms of how they market to this audience is absolutely relevant to the way they speak to everybody. And those principles are the ones that have driven them to succeed in the space of the youth, but not just the youth, marketing in general. So they're kind of three areas that I'd like to chat to you guys about. And the first one is the notion of real insight. And here I'm talking about customer insight or client insight. And the word insight next to that other word that begins with an I called innovation are probably two of the most prostituted words in marketing today. Because I'm sure, you know, whatever you see behind that descriptor that says client insight or customer insight is usually a whole lot of nonsense. It either applies to an insight into our business, our brand, our product, you know, what is it that we want to go and tell these youngsters, or it's a whole lot of demographic information. Where do they live? What do they do? What do they like to buy? You know, they like to read books, they travel, they go to the movies. That is not an insight, people. And I think we miss a fundamental point, and you can, and I'll share some examples with you, in terms of the time that we spend as marketers actually delivering and finding and digging for the real insights in terms of not just the youth audience, but audience in general. And I'll talk to you about one example that I thought was quite interesting because, you know, it's kind of about, well, what is an insight then? What does an insight look like? And what is not an insight?